how much did you know about me before you wrote that story?
Your story is just literally every line. I mean, seriously.
And just seeing that happen again in your story, well, that's just, that can't be a coincidence, obviously.
That's fantastic. Wow.
So there's some pieces of that story that are quite profound and are right in reality.
Shariah said, "I want my light to shine, Jasmine." Jasmine kissed Shariah's forehead and said, "Glow. Let your glory shine. You're worthy, Shariah." Therefore, Shariah turned away from her magical mentor and faced the dark forest before her.
Jurri, it's just incredible. It's so Holy Spirit inspired. And that's why it moves me to tears, because I just felt like he literally spoke to you. He literally spoke to you about me.
Want to know what story you're in? Discover your own tale in books written about you. Imagine a library in heaven that contains books with stories written about you and me. These stories could be in any genre, from fantasy, mystery, action-adventure, or romance. Do you want to know what story you're in?
I love that you are using what you have in a powerful way to reach people that's outside of the box.
Yeah.
You're using your skill set to lower the wall that would keep people from wanting to receive, and you're releasing what you have in a way that can be received by someone who doesn't yet know the love of God.
Yeah.
And I really commend you for that. It is a forerunning that you are doing.
Thank you.
You're pioneering it.
Yeah.
A couple people text me, what does this mean, when I sent them the link.
Right.
I've never heard of this before. That's right, because I think Jurri's the only one doing it. And I really commend you for it.
Thank you. Marcia and Edwin, thank you.
Order a personalized, revelatory, unique story to discover the glory inside your heart. Peer into the pages of the Father. Become a legend and discover your identity and destiny here in Legends of the Wind. Click the link, order now.
And hello and welcome to the Legends of the Wind podcast. I'm Jurri Schenck. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm really, as always, really stoked and really excited about tonight's show. I'm going to be reconnecting with a friend of mine that I probably haven't seen about 5 or 6 years or so. I don't really know how long it's been exactly, but Thomas Leva is a friend of mine from my old home group in Los Angeles. And today we're gifting him a prophetic story. So I am really stoked about it. I have not talked to him in many years. I don't know what he's doing in his life right now, and I am taking a humongous risk by giving him a prophetic story. And thank you so much for everyone participating. Would want to explain what we're doing here on this podcast for those of you who are new. So what I do is I do prophetic storytelling, and I combine the prophetic gifting with the creative arts. So in church ministry and that kind of thing, you would see someone giving a prophetic word. We are not doing that here. We're creating something new. We're pioneering this. And what we're going to do is show the creative works and the creative writing in action prophetically for a person to give them an identity, a revelation of their identity and destiny. So we're going to see that happen tonight. Now, I would like to bring in our guest, Thomas. Let's see here. Where are you? Hey, man. How are you?
Hi, Jurri. Nice
Cool.
to be on here.
Man, it has been a very long time.
It has. I think you mentioned about 5 years, and I was trying to remember when I last saw you, and that sounds about correct.
Wow. Yeah, so my wife and daughter and I moved from Los Angeles about 4 years ago. And prior to that, Thomas and I, with his wife Sarai, were in a home group with our friends Nancy and Deanne and others. And so at that time, both Thomas and I and all the people participating were in that group and growing and learning about the prophetic and experiencing heavenly places. So it's a rich time in that place, wasn't it? And you guys were so instrumental in bringing Alisha and I to Shepherd's Gate Church at that time. Do you remember that?
I do.
That's...
I mean, when I was so young during that time, it was just like everything was new, and that whole experience was just an amazing time. Something that I don't think I could. Something that hasn't happened again, right? And
Right.
something that is just like I didn't even know what I was getting myself into until I was just there.
Right. And by the way, when we were doing home group with Nancy and Deanne and everybody, we were growing so much, weren't we? Like, wasn't like there an acceleration of our life at that time? It was such a great, rich time. Wow.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think it was I felt I was very young at that time, like in my early 20s, and I just felt that I was surrounded by a lot of people a lot older than me, right? But there was a lot of wisdom, right? I think age is not always a reflection of wisdom, but it was something that I think was very valuable to me because I learned a lot from people that were experiencing things at different levels, like
Yeah.
myself included in that at a very young age, and then people that were much older than me that were so experienced in many different layers of their faith. So it was a valuable time, I would say.
Exactly. I agree. Thank you. I grew a lot too. And, doing this podcast and learning how to do what I do came and was rooted, a part of it, out of that time at Shepherd's Gate and learning about heavenly places and seeing how in the Bible there's more than just the prophetic. And so I want to transition into prophetic storytelling from that, if you don't mind. So
Yep.
part of the prophetic stories is that through my writing, I'm creating an encounter for you. It's an opportunity to experience heavenly places in a story form prophetically. And so that is what I want to give you an anchor for. Do you remember anchors from Pastor Tom?
I
Where
do.
there's certain things that you can hold on to that kind of give you a starting place, and then after that you can go on and go for it. So that's what we're going to do. So now I'm about to read you your story, and I want to help people in the audience and you understand how to receive a prophetic story. Now, a prophetic story is a revelation, and it's meant to be understood symbolically, not literally. So even though the story may have an element of realism or certain ideas in it that may feel like it's unnatural, it's like dream interpretation. You want to look at these stories and interpret them like a dream. Look at their function, not at their form. Okay? Now, after we do the revelation or after we read the story, which is a revelation, we do a time of conversation where we're looking to interpret the story. And the whole point of that is for you, Thomas, to discover the application. What do you do with this? How does this help you? What does it set the direction for in your life? Now, one of the things we like to talk about with a new show, with a new guest, is that you, Thomas, are becoming a legend. Now, that doesn't mean that you're super famous or you're a rock star, but you are that anyway, in my book.
Yeah.
Legends serve a purpose on a map, okay? So on a map, there are symbols and shapes and ideas that are there, and they're meant to give you an understanding of what things mean and where things are on a map. And you, Thomas, are on a journey in life, and it's your adventure where you are the hero in your own story. Okay? So when you know that you're a legend, these prophetic stories give you a sense of identity and destiny. So you go, this is who I am, and this is where I'm going to go, and I will let you finish your story. You get to finish your parable. Okay?
Okay.
Cool? Now, just so you know, at the end of the story, there's a transition time. For you in the audience listening, it's like drinking from a fire hose of revelation. So I'll help guide you because after we transition into the conversation, I'm going to ask you to help unpack your story, okay?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Now, one thing I didn't prep you for earlier. By the way, guys, I haven't talked to him in 7 years. I don't remember it. I only saw him just 10 minutes before the show started. So bear with me, guys. Now, so one of the things I like to say to my guests before I do it is, what time is it?
It's 7:09 Pacific Standard.
It's story time. Okay, so your story is titled Timing is Everything. Oh, by the way, before I get started, everybody in the chat, please participate after the story. We love your involvement. We love your comments, love your questions. You're part of the show as well. Okay. Timing is everything. At the hotel, the company's evening executive retreat was posh and full of life. The Hawaii location was the perfect getaway for everyone because they worked hard and the office life was crushing for them. It was a time to unwind, but it was also a time to plan for the next season. Thomas wore his gray suit and was looking quite sharp. He was in his element with all the people. Everyone respected Thomas and knew his significance. But Thomas wondered what was going to happen next in his career. Would he transition or would he stay? He pondered. The next day, the team went on a large yacht the company rented for their occasion. Thomas was excited because he loved the ocean and the sunny weather. The large boat had jet skis that others could ride and play in the water. After a bit of wining and dining, Thomas donned his wetsuit and went for a ride with some of his coworkers on the jet skis. There were 3 machines, and together they shot off and out into the ocean to zip around and ride the waves. Thomas had an idea. In his mind's eye, he saw a portal of light, or a glowing doorway that was far away in the ocean's surface. Thomas doesn't always see things in the supernatural, but today was different. It was time for everything to open up. Thomas was hesitant about what he saw. He revved the engine of his jet ski with some twists and turns. He circled around and around his 2 other friends riding. Thomas saw again off in the distance the portal, and he felt it calling to him. There was this desire in his heart to go look and see more. But the fun and playtime on the jet skis kept distracting him. One rider of the jet ski rode hard over some rough waves, and the bouncing action threw him off into the water. Thomas saw this and turned his jet ski around and raced as fast as he could to help. The coworker floated in the water and struggled to mount the jet ski. His life jacket made it awkward, and the constant push and pull from the waves rocked the machine. Thomas arrived and came alongside him and reached out. Thomas said, "Here, grab my hand and pull yourself up. You got this." Thomas leaned down, grabbed the coworker, and lifted him up to mount the jet ski. In no more time, the coworker was up and situated again. He regained his composure and felt great relief. "Thanks, man. You're always on the lookout for us," said the friend. Thomas smiled and casually saluted him. The wave's motion grew in intensity and rocked the jet skis higher and higher. Something shifted in the water. Thomas held on to his handles to steady himself. Next, the wind picked up, and Thomas could see off in the distance clouds forming. A storm was on its way. Thomas felt disappointed because he wanted to enjoy the sunny atmosphere and play. But the calling of the portal returned, and Thomas saw it rise above the water's surface in the same direction as the storm. The apprehension of the storm's arrival and the desire to engage with the portal conflicted in his heart. He desired to know more about the heavenly door, but that meant he had to go into an atmosphere of difficulty and disruption. The coworker zipped around and pulled alongside Thomas and called out, "Hey, do you see those clouds? Should we head back to the boat?" Thomas had to make a decision. He thought about it and knew the portal's call was getting stronger. Thomas looked behind him and into the sunlight. The yacht was there with his company. All the planning, decision-making, and discussion were about to take place there. Thomas knew he had to come to the meeting with his ideas and present his vision. He also didn't know if the leadership would appreciate his plan. Thomas thought his ideas were a bit out of the box, and that the CEO might not agree with them. The yearning came again to Thomas. He looked and saw the glowing portal growing larger, while the dark clouds of the storm came closer from behind it. Thomas called out to his coworker, "You go back to the boat. I think I see something out there in the water. I'm going to check it out and come back soon." "Really? Don't take too long, man. Those clouds look pretty bad," said the coworker. "I'm good," replied Thomas. The coworker turned his jet ski around and joined the other driver. Those 2 drivers headed back to the yacht. Thomas turned around and sped up to the portal. As he got closer and closer to the portal, the storm grew larger. But a heavy presence of peace and weight came over Thomas. It was like nothing he ever felt before. The portal's appearance became more clear. It was a tall doorway with golden edges, and inside the open door was glowing light and energy pulsating from it. The waves of energy from the portal synchronized with the waves of the ocean. As the power flowed over Thomas, he felt an ever-increasing desire for more. He steered close to the opening. Thomas came to the doorway and looked inside. In a translucent vision, Thomas could see the future and all of its glory and understanding. He saw his career taking off into greater areas of responsibility and prosperity. Thomas was to be a senior executive in his company with a team underneath him. On a desk, Thomas saw his hand on a stack of folders and files that contained the plan he was about to present to the executives at the yacht. It was truly a turning point for him and the company, for what came naturally to Thomas was the very revelation his company needed to weather this approaching storm. Over the past few years, different coworkers and leaders came and went. During that time, there were difficulties and confusion that distracted the progress of the company. This made Thomas's work very challenging, and he had to navigate the negativity of others. But through these abrasive personalities, Thomas gained greater strength and confidence. Thomas saw his hand lift up the stack of folders and files and laid them down at the desk of the CEO. When he did this, fireworks of celebration shot up into the sky. This was the positive change they were all looking for. As Thomas peered further, he saw the company move office locations and into a larger building high in a skyscraper. Thomas had a corner office and an entire floor for himself and his team. All of this was moving in great synchronicity. Thomas understood the seasons and their needs. This wisdom helped him navigate deals and projects. As Thomas sat on his jet ski in the middle of the portal's doorway, a large hand came out of the space and hovered palm down above Thomas's head. Energy and light flowed from the hand and rested on Thomas's shoulders. A voice spoke. "You are ready for the more, Thomas. Today, everything changes. Go into your next season with joy and confidence. Your struggles have prepared you for this. I bless you." Thomas closed his eyes and lowered his head with his hands held up in gratitude. The ocean waves rose the jet ski up and down, pulsing energy out of the door, and it flowed more and more and then faded away. Thomas opened his eyes and saw only the ocean water and the approaching storm, but he still felt the weight of the portal's presence. Thomas inhaled deeply and knew it was time for him to return to the yacht. Thomas turned the jet ski around and headed back to his company's boat. Behind him, the dark clouds grew larger, and lightning flashed with booms of thunder. They rushed toward Thomas as if they were chasing him. Thomas increased his acceleration and arrived at the yacht. Later, everyone was inside the fancy yacht while the rain poured down. The winds rocked the boat, and sometimes the people had to hold on to steady themselves. Thomas saw the concern in their eyes, but they saw Thomas cool, calm, and collected. "How can you be okay, Thomas?" they asked. Thomas smiled and replied, "I've seen the future. Everything will be fine." The CEO stumbled across the room and came to Thomas. He said, "Tell us your plan. What do you see?" This was the perfect timing for Thomas and his company's leadership. They finally invited him to present his plan and to truly listen. Thomas spoke, and his words opened the eyes of everyone. The plan he gave seemed ludicrous in the natural, but because of the nature of the storm and his company's direction, it actually made sense. The CEO agreed with Thomas and gave him the authority he needed to execute the plan. Just like the movement of the ocean waves and the pulsing of energy from the portal, Thomas brought great synchronicity to his company. The retreat was what everyone needed, and for Thomas to step up and shine. Inceptio.
Wow, Jay. There's a lot there to unpack in terms of you really dove into my work, right?
Yep.
My job, my career, and it's something that's been quite a significant. Obviously, I call my job a career because it's very much time consuming. right? And it's very much something that is becoming more and more serious in terms of me being an integral part of leadership. When the what you said earlier in terms of seeing a lot of people come and go, and there's been a lot of different leadership type personalities and also people that have been thought of being really key to the team, but then ultimately departing, and sometimes departing out of nowhere, right? Whether it's they decided it wasn't the right career path anymore, or the company was going through certain things and we didn't have any more, let's say, budget for them or that department. And like through those different, I guess, elements happening of coming and going and change, I've kind of stayed consistent and kind of rose up like in the face or in the critical eye of like the decision makers, right? So it's funny that you say that because it's been something that like I haven't identified as to why things are happening or how they're happening like right now, and the timing of that is it's been ideal because um, we just got a house. Obviously, that comes with a mortgage, a consistent mortgage that's not as it's obviously something that I haven't been accustomed to, and so there's a need, right, for some elevation in terms of salary and positioning in a company for stability and consistency. So that's something that really stood out in the story. And another thing that you mentioned, like the CEO, I've actually been crossing paths with the CEO a lot more frequently. Like I've been at this company for almost 4 years now, and I've said hi and bye. But like maybe a month ago, I had a solid conversations with the CEO in the kitchen area, and we was just like random conversation about health and fitness. And so, but he knows of me, and I think he wants to get to know me, even better. So the thing is, my direct um, boss, he tells him a lot about me, but I haven't had the chance to really tell him my story, right? Or what I'm about. So I think more and more I'm getting exposed to people that want to know what I'm about, want to know what I bring to the table. And so your story about certain things that like tell me your plan or tell us the plan to take us out of this, kind of situation, um, speaks to me because I often think that there is a lot that I can provide, and like I just need to be kind of supported in a way, and also have a team that really meshes together. I really function when there's like that great synergy, you know? And so the way you describe your story being in a team dynamic and me helping someone and me, having kind of a vision is something that I have to continuously like be more visionary. And so that's something that kind of speaks to me in terms of, I know this is a story, but I think I have the element of wanting to see more and get clear, interpretation of what I think about what I can see, and have that future perspective instead of being so like in the moment, if that makes
Wow.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I don't even know what career field you're in, and this is huge. So this is cool. I mean, I knew that you were in something in LA, a job wise, but in a corporate sense, but I don't really know what you do. And so the fact that you can say that there's different elements here that are resonating, that's wonderful. And you just said something really important, is that you talk about the need of becoming more visionary and not just be in the moment. I think the story is speaking to that very issue, because while you are good about being in a jet ski, so in dream language, motorcycles and jet skis are very similar. They represent some sort of independence and ability to move around. But the thing is, you're not on a motorcycle, you're on a jet ski. And I think a dream language of understanding what that would mean is that you're on a ever-changing, ever-moving surface.
Right.
And so everything's going up and down. The waves come crashing in. It can take you somewhere with the current, for example. But the thing is that you have some significant influence and ability to move around. And then in the story, you're helping someone. The guy fell into the water. He couldn't get up, but you came in and rescued him in a sense. And to me, that's what you said about being in the present. But that portal is calling you. And that's what you just said, is that you need to become more visionary. I think that this story is speaking to you, that you are being invited into being a visionary.
Mm-hmm.
That you're being called and drawn into seeing more. And that has to do with the future. So would you be able to unpack that idea more? Like, what would be the future for you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes to mind in that, when you said, like, unpack about people wanting to see, or me wanting to see more, is it actually is happening in the practical at work too. Like, for example, I get invited to a sales leadership call every Wednesday, and it's me within all the key, like, decision makers or team leads, so to say. And oftentimes it's me providing an update on what our team is doing, me providing an update on what exciting things we just did, right? So that gets me exposure to people at work. But in terms of, that visionary part, I think it is an invitation to go deeper and uncover what's next for me, because I can do the casual day-to-day things really well, right? And I sometimes feel like I can get away with just being okay at something because I have been, right? But that stepping into something that's uncomfortable is what's happening in my professional life. It's what's happening in my personal life. Walking with God and getting deeper, so to say. And I think it's getting to a point where I'm at a crossroads where it's like I can only go further based on my ability to go deeper with
Wow.
God, because otherwise I'm relying so much on myself that I've done a lot for myself through my own will. However, I feel like I can almost like reach a max where it's like, this is where you net out, right? And so and that limit is, I don't know if it's a limitation, but it's like I can exponentially go further if I just align and partner with God in a way that I haven't before.
Wow. Well, that's basically the dilemma your character has in your story. And the thing is, you are being called up into it, but it's like you talk about netting out and reaching a limit. It's like the jet ski can only go so far, but you're being called into that vision. But it's interesting. There's the storm coming.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, to pursue the storm, or to pursue the portal, the vision, you're getting closer to the storm.
Right.
What do you think the storm represents for you?
I think the storm represents a tension of letting go of the comfort, letting go of the desire to just be okay, knowing that I can get by, and not putting some extra work up front. Right. I think that's where the storm could represent. Also, in terms of like knowing that there's probably some patterns in my life that I have to just break off, right? And I think it's comfort, and I think it's just not willing to just change in certain areas, to be disciplined, like maximizing my time, maximizing my energy, investing in the right things, whether that's people, whatever services or time, and I think that's a huge issue in my, or health, right? It's a huge issue in my life, where I think the storm is telling me there's so many different things that how to change, but you're ignoring, and you're just letting them continue to be persistent in your life without changing them, but you know how to change them, you just don't want to yet.
you don't have the impetus of motivation, like the crisis hasn't come yet, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's a, and we're getting close to that crisis. I don't want to say crisis, but I'm getting close to that tensious moment where it's like I have no more answers from my own will, because it's like where there's nowhere to like pull my resource from, you know.
Wow.
So that's where I think about what the storm could represent symbolically.
That's good, man. That's good. So I remember hearing a teaching some time ago about personal development and growth, and how there's cycles. So if you look, like a baseball diamond, right? You got the home plate down at the bottom of the diamond, and then first, second, and third base. And when someone's at the place of third base, I hope I get this right, guys. When someone's at the third base, that means that they've gone through the initiation of leaving home, going to the first base, making that next run, and then finally they're almost going to make a home run. They're almost going to make it to a home plate. But the idea is that the third base is a critical moment, because they could either not make another score, and the inning closes, or they can make a home run. They can make it to home plate. And it almost feels like what you're describing to me is that you're on third base, and that you need that strategy, you need that circumstance for you to run to home plate and make a score. And I think that there's an urgency for that. It's almost kind of like either you go or you get off the pot, if you follow me. Makes sense? And so I think that what this story is for you is an encouragement, but it's also a time of initiation.
Yeah.
So when a boy becomes a man in the ritual sense of they no longer leave, they're leaving childhood and they're going to become a man. And that usually is through a ceremony of initiation. That means that the older men, the tribe's leader, calls the young boy forward and says, "Today you have become a man." And what I like to say on my show is I call it permission granted. This prophetic story for you, Thomas, I believe, is granting you permission to go and leave third base and get to the home run, get to home plate. Because when you do get to home plate, it is uncomfortable. You're at another level. You're going to have to go through another cycle again and go around the diamond, if that makes sense. So this story is a promise to you, a promise of hope, a promise of confidence for you that you have achieved a certain level of ability and maturing, and that you are ready to go forward into the next level. And by the way, guys, I haven't talked to you in 5-7 years, and I don't even know what you were doing for work. I didn't know if you were working. I assume you were, but this story, would you say that this is accurate for you in any way?
Yeah, it definitely resonates. First, because you dove really into something that is very much like my everyday life, right? My career is something that I think about on the weekend. It's something that it's really surrounding my life right now, in terms of how do I navigate through this career while also making sure that I balance out my time at home, right? And so it really resonates. And I think one of the things that I wrote down in my notes was, it says Tomas went into the portal and the storm grew larger, right? I think pursuing the portal, even though there could be the storm ahead and it can get larger, you're going to enter the portal, right? You're eventually going to enter it, right? So I think that's one of the key things that I took away, in terms of knowing that I have to go and pursue what I want, even though that tension or that storm that's in my head about, I could probably do this on my own, which is not reality anymore. It's gonna still be there. But if I pursue it, take initiative, be proactive, I think I'm gonna reach the doorway, or the portal at a certain point, right? And I think with the jet ski, it being on water, it's very fluid, right? You can go pivot any way you want, and I
Right.
think you could even go around the portal, right? And you're going to eventually come back into it. Like you can go anywhere, I think. And so I think that also was significant in terms of, making sure that I continue to make progress. Because I think even on a jet ski, you're on water, the jet ski's it's gonna keep flowing, you know. And so I feel that as long as I take the initiative to start the momentum, I think it's going to be a positive sign.
That's great. That's a beautiful interpretation. I mean, Sarai's wife, Thomas's wife, Sarai says, "Great observation about the portal." That's good, man. You really understand how to unpack these things. This is wonderful. Also, you mentioned earlier that you're part of a call. You said it's a sales call. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a sales call every Wednesday.
Yeah, that's the yacht.
I see. Okay, I see.
That's the yacht. Because remember, if I think about your story, you're not yet an executive in this story, but you are in the company of those people. And
Right.
that sales call that you have on a weekly basis is that you are in that presence of other higher leadership, and you're considered a part of them, that you belong. I believe that, like I said, this story is an initiation for you to go up higher, to go into the next level. And I think that the yacht, because a yacht is not just a boat, it's expensive. Yachts are millions of dollars, and they have the ability to move around. So like in some people's dreams, if you're in your car, that's your individual life, your career, ministry, being a student, whatever that is. But a yacht is the same thing, but on a much grander scale. And then you on your jet ski is that little thing of you as an individual, but yet you are called to be in the yacht. Does that make sense?
That is true. Yeah. I see what you're saying there. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because and almost like the yacht is it's ultimately the where you go back, right? Because the portal, I mean the jet ski is an independent thing, but
Right.
the yacht can hold so much more, right? And so
Yeah.
I almost see it also as the support. It is a support system. It is the backbone. It is like what we call it, the support of a network, right? So I see that too.
Definitely. And then remember is that when you are from after leaving the portal and you're seeing the future, and they ask you what's your plan, and it's in the middle of a storm, and the yacht is rocking, and the CEO comes to you. What is it that you have, right? Now, your story's title is "Timing is Everything." Now, you can think about timing from the waves going up and down. You can think about the timing of the synchronicity of the waves and the energy pouring out of the portal. But in the end, it was the timing of the CEO saying, "Hey, you have something to offer. What is it?" And so I think that you need to know that you can always go back to that portal. I like to help people that whenever they have a dream, like a sleeping dream, or they ever have some sort of spiritual encounter, you always have the ability and right and option to return to that place, to return to the dream, to return to that person that you meet in the dream, and you can enter it back in. You can continue the conversation. So I want to help you remember that this portal is always available to you. Now, you've talked about that you need to know more of being a visionary, and that you can't do it on your own anymore. You've kind of reached your level in your own natural sense. Is that correct? Right?
Yeah.
So now you have to go to heaven.
Right.
Now you have to take all the things that you've learned in your practical life and in your spiritual journey and learn to ascend into the heavenly places to get the solutions and the directions that you need. And I think it's interesting that at the end of the story, the retreat was what everyone needed, and for Thomas to step up and shine. That was the last sentence of your story. So you're being called to step up, but here's the thing. you have been granted permission to go up to the next level. And I think that's a beautiful thing. All this pain and difficulty and all the other personalities that you've had challenges with and all the circumstances that you've overcome have prepared you for this. It's like you have grown to that level. So congratulations, man. I'm excited to see what's going to happen and see where you're going to go, because I mean, who knows? You could be going even higher beyond that. Like, go into the future. Go and look and see. What does it look like? And look for practical things. Meet with the spirit of wisdom. She can help you see what is the how-to of all of the things that you need to make good decisions, to make the choices that bear the fruit that your company needs, to bring the prosperity, and also to avoid pitfalls. You need to know how to navigate, right? And that's the beautiful thing, is that this yacht, in order to pilot a boat, you have to navigate. Well, how do boats travel at night?
I mean,
how do they steer at night?
the light tower, right?
Well,
Or
that's one thing. That's to warn them that they're to not go there, but they look to the heavens.
okay.
Do you see? It's a little pun, right?
Yeah.
So it's about looking to the heavens to navigate in darkness. Darkness isn't evil. It means that you just can't see. You need revelation. And so, you can now have satellites for global positioning units, and they can tell you what to do. But in the olden days, they had the stars.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So you're being called to look to the heavens to know how to navigate. And I believe that your instincts that you would gain from going to heaven in the portal will help you when that you can't see the stars. Because the storm clouds come, the rain's pouring down, what are you going to do? How are you going to navigate it? Right? That means that you're going beyond your natural ability. But you probably know of someone famous that was in storms in a boat when people were having times of freaking out, right?
That's true. That's true.
So maybe you'll be walking on water too.
Yeah.
That's so
Absolutely.
cool. Well, let me ask you this, Thomas. Like, what else would you pull out of your story that speaks to you?
One of the things that you mentioned also was it said that the office moved locations, and I had a corner office and
Oh,
a
yeah.
team.
Yeah.
That was interesting because what I think about that is growth. You move offices because you expand, you grow, things become larger. Um, and having a team means there's resources, there's budget for additional support. So
Mm-hmm.
that to me means a lot of positivity in terms of business outlook and how things could look because the way we are now, our team is pretty small, our team is pretty limited on bandwidth, and we are up to the max at times, and to be able to run a team that's like taking over a whole section of a like a level, let's say, I think that comes with a level of fruitfulness, but
Mm-hmm.
also once that happens, you feel there's a lot of support.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that I took away from the story too when you mentioned that, because I don't like working and feeling overwhelmed and not producing best work. I like to work and I like to have fun, but also know that there's like a huge support. Like when you go and have a team, let's say you're playing basketball, let's say you're on a 5-on-5 game, right? That's how you play. But say you're playing 5 against 4, you definitely feel the impact of having one less person, right?
Right. Right.
So that's how I feel sometimes, where we're playing against, we have great clients, but we're playing with 4 people, sometimes 3. So, I think your story gave me hope in terms of growth and prosperity, and from that regard. And, I think about it from a work perspective a lot, because the retreat was at work, but,
Mm-hmm.
Also when you said, the story, you were in a yacht, like something that I've envisioned for my 40th birthday is having a party in a yacht,
Ah,
and having that be the environment for which I, celebrate 40 years. And so I think that in itself, and having this story kind of take place there is kind of
huh.
a symbolic representation of do it, plan it, because that's what you want. And
Yeah.
I think it was really interesting how that started there, because that's the first thing that came to my mind. Like, that's the party you want, and you're getting a dream about it or a story about it. So continue to move forward and plan that.
That's great. Well, then you should go for it. It's like the ultimate shot in the arm of encouragement for you, right? This is
Yeah.
great. This is so cool. So I know that a lot of people have been in the chat, and I'm sorry for not getting into you a little bit, but Gail says water and movement. Let me see if I can bring her up. Water and movement of air can be a picture of Holy Spirit. Ride His ways, Thomas. Don't forget God's hands of blessing and commission. That's so cool. And then Sarai said, right on, Jurri, the yacht is the headquarters. That's cool. Light. And then Castro Pancho asked, how much is an order for a story? I'll get to that in a little bit, just so you know I haven't forgotten you. And then I think Sarai also said, for you, Thomas, great observation about the portal. That's so cool. Wow. And if anybody has any questions or comments in there, this is your opportunity to add more to the conversation. Pancho or Castro, I want to address you. So isn't this cool, Thomas? Like, what we're doing is now we've demonstrated. I've demonstrated to you a prophetic story. We have given you a creative piece of art. It was a gift to you. And now we talked about the interpretation and the applications. Like, now you need to go for it. You've been given permission to pursue it, and that you have the confidence and the ability and to know what to do about it, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you guys like what we're doing, if you appreciate prophetic storytelling and Legends of the Wind, and you want to have your own prophetic story, go to legendsofthewind.com and go to our store and look for the product Become a Legend. There's also a link in the description below to do that. And by the way, guys, my wife Alisha, if you see the painting behind me, this is a prophetic painting. She does illustrations of book covers for people's prophetic stories. And you can do hardcover or soft cover. And you can have, there's another product there for story and book cover. And the story, just by itself, is $250. And I want to understand what goes into that amount. So in order to do a prophetic story, it takes 3 hours of my time. It takes 2 hours for me to go, look, and write this prophetic story, clean it up, and really pursue the library of heaven, as I call it, and then an hour for the show. And so if you do not want to appear on the program, but you still want a prophetic story, that's totally fine. We can totally work with you on that. But, Alicia's back she's taking orders again for her illustrations. And as you can see, this is a powerful experience. This is a time of pioneering something new. And also, we have our book, Legends of the Wind, Volume 1. It contains 20 prophetic stories. And just because the story is written for someone else doesn't mean you don't benefit from it. All these things can be applied universally to anybody. So if you were really wanting to do that, check us out and order a story and get on the show if you want. And so Thomas, how do you feel right now?
I feel good. I feel like you mentioned, there's like, not, would you say approval, or you get there's a word you mentioned, but it's like, it's almost like giving authority to have confirmation about things that you've been pondering, right? Things that you feel that you should do, but you almost need a
kick in the pants,
a kick, or some influence to say, or some alignment from some other source that said, hey, that this is happening in your life, even though you don't know
Mm-hmm.
until you just shared. But no, I think it's good. Sometimes I need a little bit more motivation in terms of, getting started with things.
Yeah.
And it's just that initial push that I often need. So I think it was good to hear that out loud from someone else, because it's inspiring to let me know that there's certain things happening in my own kind of sphere of things, and
Mm-hmm.
now I get to hear it, I get to share it, and I get to take some action against it.
That's great. Now, what would you tell someone that you would meet someone that doesn't know about prophetic storytelling? How would you recommend them to get a story for themselves or for a gift to someone else? Like, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I think it's just being open to. I would encourage anyone to try and sign up to. It's almost like someone reading your mail, I would say, and I don't think there's anything. Obviously, I think mail sometimes can be positive or negative, but it's always a surprise, right? Like, say you don't know what's in the mail, I think you're always surprised. And so I think people love to open things. And I think this story is something that people would benefit from, just understanding things that they could be pondering. And even if it doesn't resonate, I think there's always some application, like you
Mm,
mentioned. And so I think the application is something that people should know that's going to come from this. Either something revelatory that you wouldn't think someone would know about you, or something that can be practical and you can take an application to and take some action against it. So I think that's
wow.
that's that's how I would encourage someone to go about prophetic storytelling. Even if someone doesn't agree or doesn't know what prophetic means, I think
Yeah.
it's understanding that you're going to be told a story, and it's going to be impactful towards your life or your moment, and I think it's going to be interesting nonetheless.
Wow. Great. Thomas, thank you. That's a beautifully said. What I want it to be for people as well is a defining moment. Where your confidence and your identity is established and assured, and that you have the ability to go forward into your future. One thing we say here is that, Thomas, you're the hero in your own story. And part of a great story and part of a great hero is someone who's not passive, but is willing to take the risk to go forward and face all the obstacles, have a bad guy or an obstacle or an adversary, and know that you can overcome. And in the end of your story, you change and you're transformed into someone greater and someone new than when you first started your story. So that's my heart for you and everyone part of this. So, Thomas, thanks, man, for being my guest. Sarai says, Thomas the legend. And Mark Goldberg says, great insight. Guys, wow, this is a great show. I'm so pleased. I'm so happy that this story really spoke to you, man. Thank you for allowing me to be a gift to you and to bless you with this story. This is so fun.
Yeah, Jurri, I often don't know what I sign up for or what Sarai signs me up for, but
Right.
I just go with it, right? So I think that's also another thing about, whether it's prophetic storytelling or a prophetic word, is just try it. I think try it, let it sink in, have it marinate, and then process it. I think anybody can say something out loud, and if it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, pray about it, right?
Yeah. Good advice. Thanks, man. Well, everybody, I want to thank you for watching tonight's show. Thank you for being part of the chat. Thank you, Sarai, for all your wonderful emoticons and your enthusiasm. And so, Thomas, we're going to close out the show, but do not hang up. We're going to have a debrief time, if that's okay.
Okay.
And everybody, thank you so much. By the way, I haven't even said, if you like this program and you're not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. And for those of you who haven't, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. I'm so glad glad that we had such a good viewership tonight. It's super encouraging. And by the way, share this video out. Let people know what we're doing. Let people know the opportunity of getting a prophetic story and having a combination of the prophetic with the creative arts and bringing it together for a place of encouragement and strength. Let people know and encourage them to order a story. We're building this, we're pioneering this, and we thank everybody for all your support and your involvement. All right? Sound good, Thomas?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. We'll have you a good night and see you next week.